Hello everyone in the Everything Publishing Academy. Have I got a treat for you guys today? Ta-da! Here is Adam Wallace, who has just hit the New York Times bestseller list with How to Catch an Elf. How amazing. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you, Karen. Lovely to be here.
It's so amazing to have you on. I think everybody's really excited in the group hearing that I'm interviewing you today.
Well, I'm excited to be on here. This is very cool. It's great.
We've got some people in the group that you know Susan Wakefield, you know Michelle, Lee,
Yep.
There's lots of amazing people from around your end of the world in our
Yes.
group. So if you want to say hi to them, you can.
Okay. No, I don't want to. No. Hello, everybody.
I know how close you guys are. I seen it in action at Michelle's
Yeah,
lunch.
yeah, that's why I can say that. Otherwise, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't get away with it.
No, that's right.
Adam, you're an author. Obviously, you live a very awesome life as an author. Can you share
Yes.
with us about your authorship journey? Because I'm sure it's not just an overnight success story.
No, not at all. It was, so to get to where I am now, it's been almost 20 years exactly. Started out, 19, was it the end of 98 or start of 99? I started writing. I hadn't written for 10 years after school. I hated English in year 12. I almost failed English in year 12. Just my very mature brain went, that's it. I'm never writing again. This is the worst. And so, did engineering. Yeah. And it's so easy for it to happen. And it's so easy to get influenced by school, and school's great, but it can influence you the wrong way as well. And and the way I had to write was just so far outside what I loved writing. And so to get good marks, I had to write in a way I hated, and I thought, well, this is dumb. I just hate it, So I did engineering and went whole math science and went that way, and then started writing 10 years later, and just from the first story I wrote, which was terrible, and I've read it back since, and it's awful, but I loved it. I wrote this one story, and I was absolutely hooked. And
What genre is it that in? What genre was your story in? A children's book?
It was a children's book. Yeah, it was half prose and half rhyme, and about this little character called Blip that looked like a little raindrop and lived in a sand pit, and it met this kid who lived in the house. It was just, I mean, it was probably fine, but just in terms of, it was fine in terms of the enthusiasm, but in terms of the technique, it was probably not fine at all. But
such an important book, though. It's your first, so it was an important book to get under your belt.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just kicked off everything, and just kicked off that feeling of, well, as I said some the other day, it's like writing. I wrote that story and I went, where have you been all my life? Like, it was like I'd lost this last 10 years of not writing, because I used to write at school all the time. My grandmother was a children's book author, and she used to type out stories that I'd write, and yes, I loved it, and I just had stopped it. And so I just got to this point. I wrote and I went, that's it. And I had obviously 10 years of creativity had been stifled, and it was just like, bam. And I just, every day since I've written, I wrote hundreds of stories that first year, like just literally hundreds. And
just flooded out. You opened up the floodgates.
Flooded out, and it was surprisingly all in rhyme, and I don't really know why, but it just all came out rhyming. And I did The Artist's Way, which I love that book, and I've done it again since. And I think it's amazing. So that sort of, because I had a lot of blockages over things, especially after school, and so I just did that. And then so after, I don't know, probably like maybe a year or so, I thought, well, I may as well see if I'd never thought of it as anything other than a bit of fun. And I thought, I may as well try and get published, see what happens. And so I started sending things out and getting rejection letters back, and started to get this flashback to year 12 of failing year 12. And I'm like, no, it's happening again. But I decided that I would kind of keep trying, keep going, because I was enjoying it so much. And eventually I ended up reading this quote by Bruce Lee, which basically I was finding it quite hard at one point. I read this quote and it changed everything, where he'd written an essay, and it says, the opening line is, I will write what I will write, and if it touches and connects with you, that's beautiful. If not, well, it can't be helped. And I just went, they just don't like it, but not everyone has to like it. And it's like, it just freed up everything. So kept writing, kept sending out, 150 odd rejections. And I think about 5 years later, I was just kind of sick of waiting. And I'd been working, I got my primary teaching degree, and was working in before and after care and reading my stories to the kids, and they were just loving them. Like I was just reading them and they were getting a great response. I thought, this is crazy. I was going to do something. So I borrowed $10,000 and found an illustrator on through the Style File, which is done by Books Illustrated. Just this little unknown illustrator named Heath McKenzie, and so we ended up doing a book together. And yeah, he's obviously now gone on to huge, bigger and better things. And
you found him.
I found him. Yes, I'm responsible for Heath McKenzie. So no, he'd done a couple of little things. He'd published his own comics and he'd done some jewelry. And I think he may have done some books, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I loved working with Heath, and we ended up doing, I think, 5 books together. So yeah, it was great. And so yeah, I'd self-published 2,000 copies of that, and went out to markets and did a couple of schools, and they all went within the first year. So I reprinted it, and I went, well, I started just believing, I think then, that there was something there that either it didn't suit the publishers or they hadn't seen for whatever reason. And so I thought, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of keep going with that. And so then I was working the before and after care, and just flukily, I decided one day to teach the kids cartooning, and just looked up a couple of images online, copied them, and then went into the program and started teaching the kids how to draw this particular cat. And as we did it, and I kind of adjusted a little bit, and they're like, that first step looks like a bum. And I'm like, it really does. And so we started making up this whole story as we did the cat. And then that sort of transformed into, I taught myself a dog. The first 4 were a dog, a horse, a cat, and a bull. And then I self-published 4 little individual books on how to draw those. So each instruction was as a rhyme and a story. And as you draw the story, so the dog was a UFO, the headlight came on, the doors opened, aliens appeared. And when you drew that, it was the dog. And so that then was were my next books that I self-published. And then being able to do those little drawings got me into so many more schools. And I used to go to markets, to craft markets, and sell my books, or Caribbean Gardens I started out at. And yeah, so just did that. I was still submitting. And so after about 8 years, I think it was around 2007, or came out in 2006, my dad went to his best friend's birthday, and his best friend Sid, his daughter Charlotte, was there, and she said to Dad, Adam should send his stuff into this new publisher, JoJo's. They're starting up a children's book line. And it was just sort of an offhand comment, and Dad told me, so I sent them in, and they accepted it. And then they didn't know Charlotte had told me about them, but they then gave her my books to edit. So we ended up working together on those.
Goodness. Serendipity. We love serendipity.
It's amazing. And so that was a partnership publishing deal. So again, I put in some money to that. But then I did about 8 books with them, and we ended up going to sort of a traditional agreement. And so that sort of kicked things off a little bit there. And then just more random meetings. I met Paul Collins from 4th Street Publishing. I had a friend of mine was having a book launch, and he was the publisher. So I met him, and that led to some books there. And then I had friends at a dinner party, and they chatted to the guy next to them. They're like, what do you do? And he's like, I'm the CEO of a children's book publishing company. And they said, really? We've got a friend. And so, so I got a meeting with him. That was at Hinkler Books. And so I ended up doing about 10 books with Hinkler. And yeah, it all just kind of flowed a little bit. And still I was self-publishing every year as I went along as well, doing at least a couple of self-published
owning your
books.
Journey whenever you self-publish. You're keeping the wheels going, aren't you?
Absolutely.
It's amazing. And building your profile. And awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing is that building your profile and getting out there and being seen, because it's a very crowded world, the book world, and there's, I don't know how many.
You have fun, don't you, Adam? You have fun along the way on this journey.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's one of my big things is, especially after year 12 where I hated writing, like everything to me, I had to be enjoying it. Like whether it was doing the markets or doing the schools or doing whatever books I was doing, I was only doing books that I love doing. And the fun is a massive part of it for sure.
It is, and it keeps you motivated and passionate about it, because if you just think of the slog of it all, you're just going to just get swept up in the mundanity of it all. But right now, if you're enjoying the journey, the goal can be infinite, because you're just enjoying the journey as you go along.
Absolutely. And the best thing about it is there's no ceiling on what that goal can be with writing. It can be literally anything.
And
amazing.
Your journey can go anywhere. Like, for example, I started out with children's books, doing them around my kitchen table with my kids. You know, I'm a mum of 6, so I have lots of kids. We used to draw or illustrate our own little books, put them together in little, like, I still have them. They're stuck together with staplers. And isn't it funny? That's where the journey began. And who would have thought that, you know, that I would have ended up where I am. So it's an embracing your journey and honoring it and going with it and knowing where you need to navigate. Your
definitely.
Story just oozes that, and it makes me really excited.
And me too. And even hearing you say that, and it's a similar thing as I do as well. And it is just if you have that sort of love for it, that when it does become that slog and you still find the fun in it, then you do just keep going. You don't, because I think a lot of people, it's easy to kind of quit and stop doing it after the first couple of rejections or hard markets. And but if you are going to do it anyway, and it doesn't matter what happens, and you're still going to do it, then you just keep going.
And that's the thing. And these days, like, I've written an article for Ingram about the evolution of the author publisher. It's not about the traditional deal anymore. You absolutely do exactly what everyone needs to be doing, which is transitioning between publishing yourself and getting traditional deals, because the traditional deals help you evolve and build your brand and get in front of wider audiences. But whenever you're publishing yourself, you're selling directly, you're making the money directly yourself and building your bank balance instead of publishers. Like, what, you know, it has to be a win-win scenario for you as the author. You know, that you're totally what an author publisher is.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right. And, you know, for a traditional publisher, they need to sell basically 10 times as many books that you would as a self-publisher for you to make the same income. And yes, you've got to do all their jobs as well, but it's totally doable. And I just find as well, there's some great talks I've seen. I think it's Will Smith talks about, if you do those hard yards and you do the self-publishing and you do the slog and you do everything else, rather than just getting picked up straight away, if it all kind of goes a bit pear-shaped, you know how to deal with it. You've been through all the stuff, and you know that even if you don't get the traditional stuff, you'll still be fine. You can still do what you've been doing, and that's almost the cream on the cake, I think. And it is that wider exposure and everything, which is fantastic, but you don't need to rely on it.
That is the thing, Adam. And the thing is as well, whenever you get a traditional contract, you still have all the promoting to do, the getting out there, it's not just you sit back and watch you still have to get out there, even more so whenever you get a traditional deal, because it's expected of you to get out there and be more, get out and sell those books.
It'd be nice to be able to just sit back, but it doesn't always happen that way.
That was the old way. It's not that way anymore.
Exactly.
All right, so let's talk about New York Times bestseller list.
Yes.
So have you been on it more than once? How did this all evolve for you or happen?
So actually, I think the most recent one, the How to Catch an Elf being on, I think it's the 11th time now that I've been on. So which is amazing and bizarre and exciting and every other word. And again, it's like total kind of random coincidences. So I've been working with Hinkler, and that kind of finished up, I think around like 2013 or 14. And I just hadn't heard from them it sort of finished up and I hadn't heard anything. And then, so it would have been 2015. Okay, so 2 or 3 years later, I got an email from Karen, who I'd been working with at Hinkler, and she was American. She's like, I'm back in America. I'm working at a company in Chicago, Source Books, and we've got this idea for a book. Would you be interested in writing it? And I said, sure. And it was for St. Patrick's Day, which is huge over there. And she said, it's about a leprechaun. It's the night before St. Patrick's, and over there, I don't know if here as well, but over there especially, a lot of people will. The parents overnight will set it up as if a leprechaun's been in the house. Like they'll turn the water green in the toilet and they'll put little footprints everywhere and gold coins and all that sort of thing. She's like, we want to do a thing where kids are trying to catch the leprechaun.
We don't even do that in Ireland. I'm from Ireland.
Really?
It's not even done enough.
Oh, that's awesome. So maybe it's just an American thing then. I don't know.
Thing, yeah.
Oh, they take everything and make it bigger, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They do.
Yeah. So I read this little book, and it was really fun. I actually got my niece, Michaela. She did the research on leprechauns for me and found out, what sort of traps they don't like iron bars, and they drink dandelion tea, and they fix shoes. So I put all that into the traps, and traps kind of got bigger and bigger. And And I wrote it and sent it off, and it got illustrated by this guy, Andy Elkerton, who I always get confused. He's either Irish living in Scotland or Scottish living in Ireland. I can't remember. He's
Both
one
the
of the
same
two.
thing, practically.
Yeah. That's right. And he's amazing. He illustrated it. It got published. Amazing. Done. I kind of then sort of wiped it from my mind, and that was a flat fee job as well. So, which is interesting because now I've done self-publishing, partnership publishing, traditional publishing, and flat fee. So
yes.
I've experienced all the different things, and this was great. And so
whenever they're selling millions of copies, you don't get royalties for that.
No.
Oh no.
Just the initial fee. I see it that they're doing advertising and marketing for me. So
well, it's cool. It's cool. You're getting on the New York Times bestseller list.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's led to so many things. Like that's led to, I got a job here with Scholastic, and I'm sure part of that was through the New York Times thing. I got a job in Slovenia, which was through the New York Times thing. So it's led to so many things. But I didn't even know it was on. When it first happened, I went into the Sourcebooks website, and I was looking for something. I don't even know what. And it just had this little thing saying, "Congratulations to our most recent New York Times bestseller, Adam Wallace, How to Catch a Leprechaun." I'm like, what? And so I'm emailing them going, what didn't you tell me? They're like, yeah, isn't it great? I'm like, yes, tell me. So,
it's just so, it happens all the time for them. It's not a big thing.
I think that's what it is. They're like, yeah, well, it's like our 10th one for this year. I'm like, what? Oh, wow. So, yeah, but it was amazing. And so I go on each week and see when the list is updated to see if it's changed its position. And it's so exciting. Like it's that thing where,
it's a bucket list for an author.
It's a bucket list, and it's not sort of why you do it or anything, but it's just so nice. It's that
like a big gold star, isn't it?
And I'd been told one time by someone in the industry saying, your books only sell because you're there. As in, like, my books would sell if I'm at a school or a market, and that's why they sell, is because I'm there. And so I always had it in my head that was why I was getting rejected by publishers, because my books just wouldn't sell if I wasn't personally present. And so I had this sort of complex about it. So to see it happen in America, I had nothing to do with it apart from writing it. It was just this almost like a weight off my shoulders. Yeah, it was absolutely. So it was so nice for that. Just going, oh, you know what? It's actually the writing is okay as well. It's going to do its own job.
Authors need to realize this, and like I get it all the time because we have to turn down, but it's not personal. God, there's so many amazing stories, but whenever you've got a schedule, a budget for certain books that year, and just if it could be the most amazing author, and you really want to take them on, but you just can't. It's so frustrating for a publisher as well, but it's never personal. It's never personal.
Yeah, absolutely. And it almost can't be personal. That would make it too hard in a way. You sort of have to have your business hat on when you're looking at it, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. I've had rejection letter from Penguin, but with a nice little comment,
that's good.
Which is good. But that was like 10 years ago. So, and then I was just like, I'm going to do this my way. So I'll set up my own publishing press and see where that goes.
and it's gone so well. And when you do take that plunge, and if you have that sort of focus, you just can make it happen.
If you've had the same intention, you've just done it your way and owned your authorship and had this amazing journey. Have you ever written your journey?
No, well, no, I haven't. No, I guess it kind of goes in, like, little bits of it go into books. Like one book I did was about this kid who was in year 12 and didn't know what he wanted to do, and he was failing English, and he thought he'd become an engineer. And like I say, little bits go into little different books and things like that, but never actually sat down and written it. I don't know. It feels kind of boring. I don't know.
It's fascinating. Yeah. I'm in awe. I wish I'd had this conversation with you before. I knew the outline of it, but your story is really important for authors to hear. Really, really important, because it gives everybody hope. It also gives them inspiration to navigate their own journey and feel into it and go with that, because nobody's going to have the same journey as you. Nobody's going to have the same journey as me. But that's okay, and it's actually exciting, and it's fun to navigate your own ship.
Definitely. And that's one of the things I got told one time. I remember I wrote a letter to Andy Griffiths when I was kind of just starting out, and I was so nervous. I didn't send it for 6 months. I was so nervous, and I ended up sending it to him, just basically saying, I'm going okay, but how did you get to kind of that next level? And didn't expect anything back. And he wrote this beautiful long email with attachments and advice and books I should read and things I should do and all this sort of thing. And saying how he started out in the markets and the schools and self-publishing as well. And that it took him 10 years before he really kicked off. And then I ended up seeing him a little bit after, and it was in my 10th year. And I met him and I said, look, it's my 10th year and it's going okay, but it's kind of plateauing a bit. And I said, I wanted to sort of mirror you and have it be my 10 years and kick off. And he's like, yeah, everybody's 10 years is different. And I really like that because, like you say, everyone's journey is different. And some people it happens quickly, some it's slowly, and some it's chance meetings, some it's whatever it is. There's so much you can't control apart from your own writing. And if you can do that and work on that,
moving forward, isn't it? Moving forward, taking the next right step. That's that is it. Exactly. The next right step. I went to see Frozen 2 and I
saw it yesterday. I was going to say.
I love it. I have 4 girls and I get to go and watch all these movies.
Amazing.
And it's so true though. It's wisdom. And I'm like to my girls, that is the best advice. When things aren't going right, you just take the next right step.
The next step.
I preach it all the time to them.
Yeah. Well, it's all you can do, isn't it? Like that's all you can do, and control what you can control, and just everyone else is going to do their thing anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And they're worried about themselves. They're really not worried about you. You just keep moving on doing your thing.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's so amazing to chat to you, and I have learned so much, and I know everyone in the group is going to learn so much. And you're welcome to come and join us in the Everything Publishing Academy should you want to.
I would love to.
We have a beautiful community there, and we help each other, we share things, we just uplift. But you know who you are now? You're the Andy Griffiths for many, many people. Like I can see my 14-year-old son is an aspiring artist, and he writes little things and does comics and things like that. So he's exploring his own, and he does animations and puts them on YouTube, and so he's starting his. But at 14, like, if I had the permission to do what I love, I was 31 when I started. And, it's like, what?
Yeah, I was 28, so yeah, similar.
See, and going all those lost years. But as I was a high school dropout. I hated my English teacher, Mr. Jones. He wore a blue suit one week and a brown suit the next with matching shoes and ties, and it was disgusting. But he never made me love English. And then when I went back to high school, or when I chose to go back as an adult into education, I loved English literature and I loved English. And I was like, this is what it should have been like in school for me. It shouldn't have been a chore and something that I wasn't interested in, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I'd love. I mean, I know teachers are under the pump for different things, but if they, like an English teacher especially, it is about just inspiring that excitement in reading and books and writing and all that sort of thing. And I love hearing that your son is doing animation. My nephew also does animation that he puts up on YouTube as well, and he loves it. And they can just do incredible things these days as well. It's amazing.
And they take leaps and bounds whenever they evolve from it. It's like a really big, you can see it happening in front of your eyes. It's amazing.
Yeah,
so it's
incredible.
Good. Oh, Adam, thank you so much. So where can we find you? Where can we come and hunt you down? Where are you online? Do you have a website, a blog?
I do have a website. It's if you just Google Adam Wallace, it comes up, but it's adam-wallace-books.com.
Yeah. Awesome.
And on Facebook, it's just, I'm just Adam Wallace. I think it's facebook.com/Adam Wallace Books.
Awesome.
You can find me on there, and they're the main two. I'm on other stuff, but I'm hopeless. I would much rather write my books than sit writing other stuff.
I know. Let somebody else do that. How many books in total have you published?
I actually just added it up the other day. It's 67. Now.
Wow, so, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
That just blows somebody's mind. But it just goes to show when you just keep moving forward and going, and you just collect like this library of your own. Like, what a legacy for the world, and your books are fun, make people smile, that's, definitely what we need in the world more of.
Yeah, thank you. And it is, and I mean, definitely getting that sense of fun fun is really what I want to get in my books. But it is funny to see them build up, and you almost don't realize it at the time, like when it's happening, and especially doing the self-publishing as well as the other stuff, and then things. It's
Just all adds up, doesn't it?
all adds up. Yeah, it's really nice, really nice.
Have you counted how many books you've sold in your 20 years?
Yes and no. So I know how many I've sold personally. Yeah. Well, personally, with my self-published ones, I've sold, I think it's like 141,000 I've sold.
Awesome.
And then, so I get the sales figures from the different publishers, and then the ones in America I don't, because it's flat fee, but just looking on Amazon, I've sort of looked up what they've sold on there. So I think total now it's about 1.4 million it's up to. So yeah, which is nuts.
I'm going to give you a big clap. That's amazing.
But it is, and it's crazy considering, like, I remember going to my first market and I sold like 4 books, and like that was, and as you say, that's the start of the journey.
That's
like
4 homes, yeah. They're gonna
4 homes, and 4 kids that are reading the books, and that's the thing I think is I look at all like that number and just go, that's that many kids and families, and probably more if they share it. And there's libraries that my books are possibly going to inspire and entertain and maybe influence them to want to become right. Like, it's just so, I get a bit teary. It's so exciting. Like, it's amazing.
You're living your dream, without a doubt, living your dream. And that's what it is. Whenever you take, it takes courage to say, okay, I'm going to do this and make this happen. And I'm going to own it, and I'm going to invest in myself. And I'm going to see where this takes me, but I'm open for the adventure and the journey. And you've done that with open arms, and that's why you're sitting where you are now. I just love this story. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's and lovely to talk. Like, I love that sort of, like, we're obviously so like-minded with this journey as well, and I really love that as well. So thank you. It's been so cool.
Oh. So everyone, Adam's going to come and join us in the Academy. Yay for us. And thank you so much. Please share your comments below whenever you watch this video. We haven't done a live webinar, so people aren't in here with us. This is pre-recorded. So everyone, pop your comments in below, and I'm sure Adam will be in, and he will say hi whenever he joins us. Bye, everyone.
Bye.